It is Thursday, October 30th. Major news breaking today. The U.S. Supreme Court weighing in, giving President Trump the authorization to deport illegals even faster. This morning, President Trump walking into what he calls the G2 meeting, a meeting with him and Xi Jinping, leaving that meeting with a deal, albeit a temporary one. Also, J.D. Vance getting grilled yesterday at this Turning Point event, debating everything from immigration, Palantir, his wife converting religions, Thomas Massie, and so much more. We'll show you.
This is a massive legal victory, Jesse, a massive victory for law and order and for our constitutional republic.
So 5 months ago, back in April, President Trump began shipping the worst of the worst criminal illegals to El Salvador, to that mega prison in El Salvador. We reported then how Trump, as commander-in-chief, had every right to invoke the Alien Enemies Act to remove illegals. It's a law on the books, passed by Congress. We even read from the text of the law on multiple episodes, which clearly gives the president this power. Yet, for months, the Trump administration was stopped, blocked by an activist judge from doing this. Democrats losing their minds over this policy, some even flying down to El Salvador to help the criminals Trump deported. Yes, our American congresspeople spending your tax dollars to fly to El Salvador to help deported criminal Salvadorians return to our country. The media helping Democrats with messaging, claiming Trump was illegally invoking the Alien Enemies Act, that he was violating the U.S. Constitution by doing so. Well, what do you know? 5 months later, the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday reviewing this case for all but 10 minutes and ruling President Trump can use the Alien Enemies Act to deport illegals to that El Salvador mega prison. Watch.
Now we have a Fox News alert. The Supreme Court just cleared the way for Trump to deport illegals even faster. The High Court ruled that Trump can use the Alien Enemies Act to send Venezuelan gangbangers to a mega prison in El Salvador. This is a huge ruling in Trump's favor and a major win for the country, after, as you know, D.C. Judge James Boasberg ordered a stop to the deportations. So this is pretty significant. These deportations, Caroline, can keep going.
This is a massive legal victory, Jesse, a massive victory for law and order and for our constitutional republic and the sovereignty of the United States of America. We called on the Supreme Court to rein in these activist judges like Judge Boasberg, who was completely out of line in trying to say that the president didn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists off of our soil. We have always maintained the position at the White House that the president was well within his constitutional authority to do so. And this decision proves that President Trump and our administration have always been right from the beginning. He will continue to utilize the Alien Enemies Act to remove foreign terrorists and Tren de Aragua members, vicious gang members from American communities. And because of this ruling, the United States of America is a much safer place. Our team will get to work tomorrow to deport these heinous, violent foreign terrorists from our neighborhoods.
And you had another couple critical wins in the court with regard to DOJ. Tell us about those. That seems to be making progress.
Yes, absolutely. There have been many wins that the mainstream media has failed to cover, particularly over the weekend. The Supreme Court also ruled that the president does, in fact, have the authority over federal funding, that he can dictate what funds can go out the door and what can't, so long as they are part of the executive branch. So we have always, again, maintained that every executive order the president has signed, every executive action that he has taken has been well within his executive authority. And DOJ is doing a tremendous job at cutting back at the waste and the fraud and the abuse that have been ripping off American taxpayers, that have not been aligned with our interests here in our country. So we're going to continue the president's agenda. Again, he's well within his constitutional authority, and it's great to see the Supreme Court reining in these activist judges who are wearing robes but are acting as judicial activists, not as real judges and real arbiters of the law.
All right. Lawyers wrong. I can't believe a lawyer would ever be wrong. It just amazes me. They think they're always right. I guess not this time. Sorry, Boasberg. We love you, but we're sorry. Caroline, thank you.
What a complete waste of time and money. Meanwhile, this morning, President Trump scoring another victory in Asia, a semi-victory, meeting with China's Xi Jinping, the two leaders meeting for 90 minutes and reaching a deal, albeit a temporary one. China agreeing to purchase 12 million metric tons of soybeans now, this current season, and at least 25 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans per year for the next 3 years. In return, Trump has agreed to cut in half its fentanyl-related tariffs on Chinese goods in exchange for Beijing's commitment to reduce precursor chemical flows, because the fentanyl that's smuggled into the U.S., it comes from the cartels, but the cartels can only process it because of the precursor that they purchase from China. So no precursor, no fentanyl. Additionally, President Xi expressing interest in a U.S. pipeline project in Alaska. Now, the reason this is happening right now, by the way, is because China recently halted all soybean purchases, crushing American farmers. There's been so much pressure on the administration from farmers that you need to fix this trade bottleneck ASAP. Then that was on top of the rare earth export controls that China threatened 2 weeks ago. That has put enough pressure on the U.S. to cut some temporary trade deal with China. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying this deal can now be signed within the next week. Watch.
The president has been laser focused since the day he came in office in terms of rare earths. He issued an executive order right out of the blocks. He recognized that this is a strategic vulnerability for the U.S. The Chinese control about 70% of the mining, but more importantly, they control about 90% of the processing and refining. So since January, President Trump, this administration have been working to stand up facilities where we can refine and process rare earths. I think it is something that we inherited. This was a mess that's 20 years in the making, and President Trump is determined to solve this because we have to take control of our supply chains. And we're going to be taking control of our supply chains in rare earths, in semiconductors, in medicines, in steel, in shipbuilding. Part of the America First agenda that President Trump is pushing is for us to be able to control our own destiny and not have any choke points in our supply chains like he inherited.
Now, in this deal, China's agreed to suspend its rare earth export controls for 1 year, just a year, also agreeing to resolve the TikTok dispute with the Trump administration. In return, Trump has agreed to discuss Chinese access to NVIDIA AI chips, but he drew a red line, that he won't grant access to their Blackwell line. All in all, this deal looking more like a truce than a victory for one side or the other, which tells you that China is formidable, folks. Even with all the U.S. leverage and soft power around the world, China controls a large enough choke point on international trade that they can force a truce with Donald Trump, making it clear we are witnessing this new world order, a 2G world, one U.S.-centric, another Chinese-centric. In another story, Vice President J.D. Vance getting grilled yesterday while taking Charlie Kirk's place at the University of Mississippi Turning Point event, fielding questions from students. The event packed to the rafters. J.D. holding his own, though, in one of the more notable moments, this foreign student confronting J.D., demanding an answer as to why foreigners, she said, were sold the American dream while your administration is trying to take it away. Watch how he answered.
When you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You made us spend our youth, our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you, as a vice president, stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out to people who are here rightfully so by paying the money that you guys asked us? You gave us the path, and now how can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore?
I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 people came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean that we're thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people a year in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot have, I'll go and finish, we cannot have an immigration policy where what was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There's too many people who want to come to the United States of America, and my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world, it's to look out for the people of the United States. Now,
also, tons of questions about Israel, about the Trump administration's ties to Israel. I don't know about you, but this whole anti-Israel debate is getting boring. Watch JD respond to this, handling it pretty well. Watch this.
I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so let me say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the president of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States, they're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we'd be able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now you ask about, sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really, really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I am fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to do. That's what we try to do every single day, I promise you. Thank you.
Everyone, it seems like, is anti-Israel today. It's so easy for anyone online to just scream about Israel, say Israel bad, and get tons of views, which makes no sense to me. Why do we support Israel? Because they're our number one ally in the Middle East. Who would you rather trust in the Middle East? Would you rather trust Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, or how about Iran, like the Obama administration did? As far as Middle Eastern allies go, I choose Israel. If I had to live in the Middle East, which country would I choose? I would choose Israel every single time. Not that I want to live there, but if I did, I would choose Israel. Let me know what you think. He also, JD, was asked about our man Thomas Massie, Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie, one of our favorite congressmen, libertarian, who has, it seems like, zero friends in Congress today because he votes no on everything. He does that, though, because he doesn't like any of the bills put up for a vote. Any bill that adds to the national debt like we've been doing, Thomas votes no on. Watch JD explain why they're now primarying him, why they're supporting his primary challenger.
Independent, having your own opinions is one thing. Voting against the party on every single issue, you're eventually going to make too many enemies. And that is the problem that Thomas has had. It's not one issue, it's not 3 or 4 issues. It's that every time that we've needed Thomas for a vote, he has been completely unwilling to provide it. That is why the President of the United States has trained his ire on Thomas Massie. It's because we can never count on him for some of the most difficult votes. I wish that that weren't the case. I say that as somebody who's known Thomas well before I got into politics, but politics is politics, and when you always vote against the party, you can't expect the party to actually back you.
And look, I get it. Politics is about compromise. It's about cutting deals. It's also a slimy business. I hope Thomas Massie wins, though. We need, I think, more congressmen like him, not less. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.